Franosity helps corporate executives and entrepreneurs build generational wealth, diversify their portfolios, or make a smart career pivot through honest, no-pressure franchise consulting. With 20-plus years of real-world experience as franchise owners, operators, and franchisors, the Franosity team knows what works and what doesn't. They don't sell franchises, they guide people to the right fit or steer them away if it's not. Learn more at Franosity.com. That's Franosity.com.
Coming up today on The Nice Guys on Business.
When you are the lead anything, lead dad, lead mom, lead parent, you're owning those tasks. Nobody is telling you what to do. Nobody is telling you you need to go and, get a dentist appointment for your kids. You know that it's time and you do it. Just as I'm not telling my wife, hey, did you remember to get those Christmas presents this year? You know, it's the birthday for the daughter coming. She knows and she owns those tasks. And so that's really leads for a lot more harmony in the relationship, because you're not, one person isn't keeping that mental load all the time. Like, okay, did he take out the trash? Did he do this? Did he good? You just know you own a certain number of tasks in the house. You do it. And the other things, of course, you talk through and you come up with a solution together.
You know, she turned the Nice Guys on Business into newts. Well, they got better. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to flip the script on what it means to be a modern dad. Now, Paul Sullivan, he is our guest today. He's the founder of the Company of Dads, a community built for lead dads, not wannabe Mr. Moms like Michael Keaton, whatever, 220, 221, whatever it takes. We're talking play dates, doctor runs, school drama, you name it. Paul's been in the trenches, and he's built a space so other guys don't have to go it alone. He spent 25 years as a badass journalist. Paul, is that the first time you've been called a badass?
No, often by many people in my life.
Okay. And 13 years writing the Wealth Matters column for the New York Times. He's got 3 daughters in his circle of influence. Yes, Paul's bringing the dad wisdom and smarts to the Nice Guy community today. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Doug, that was, I must say, a badass introduction. So thank you.
I gotta be honest and open here. It was AI generated. We were just having this whole conversation, Nice Guy community, before Paul got here. I did this whole summary of what Paul and I were going to talk about, and it actually, not realizing it, gave me an audio version of what our interview was going to do. So, Paul, interview's over. I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, that was quick. So thank you very much. I'll go get a cup of coffee now.
So let's talk about the beginning stage of this, because I'm a dad of 2 kids, but my kids are older. They're 28 and 31. And I always think about, what would I have done differently when my kids were younger, had I been able to maybe take more of an initiative or more of a role of the lead parent. Because I think my wife at the time, divorced now, but I think my wife at the time played more of the lead role. And then I thought, well, she was the one that did like the safe stuff. Like, she made sure there was a lot of structure, but I was the fun dad. And I felt like, to a degree, there's a lead role in that too. So how do you really define what a lead parent is, or what a lead dad would be?
Yeah. So we define a lead dad as the go-to parent, whether he works full-time, part-time, or devotes all of his time to his family. Then we say, in many cases, he's there to support his wife or spouse in whatever their career is. We say many cases because we know that 18% of fathers in the United States are divorced, widowed, or otherwise single. And then the last part is a lead dad in the office is always an ally to working moms and caregivers in general. But it's really, it's that go-to component that makes you a lead dad.
So I would say, if you were to query my kids when they were younger about who is the go-to parent, Mom was always the parent that you went to get the answer, and dad was always the parent that you went to have the fun. And so I know there's probably more of a defined role as lead parent assigned to my ex-wife at the time, and we were living together until my youngest was 15. So most of their raising was done with the 2 of us in the house. But I would assume that she was really the lead parent in this case. Would that be fair?
Here's a quick test.
Yeah, go.
Do you know the name of your kid's pediatrician?
Yeah, Peter Farah.
Okay. Do you know the name of your kid's dentist?
Yes, Sherry Cohen.
You're there, man. It's known these things like that. It's it's not we don't have a purity test. We don't have any sort of initiation rites or anything like that. It's really the dad who wants to step up and be involved in everything. And the counter to a lead dad is an event dad. Yeah, he's working all the time, doesn't have a lot of time, and just shows up at the soccer game. You know,
But that also, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
yeah.
but I feel like to a degree,
AI told you to interrupt me at that point, didn't it?
yeah, I'm just
I
following my
knew that,
script here,
Doug.
dude.
I know. So do what the Borg cell tells you to do.
I feel like that was at the time, I mean, entrepreneurial family. So
Mhm.
I was in the live entertainment business, and I was the guy that was working outside the house, but not diminishing the role of my ex-wife, who was doing all the selling and the pitching and the phone answering when the phone was ringing. So I think that we held, even though I was the one whose name was on the paycheck coming in the door, I felt like I couldn't have done that had it not been for my ex-wife. So I was challenged with defining. I would assume that she was the more of the lead parent, but then again, I just answered those two questions, and it was easy for me to answer those
That's
questions.
right.
I wasn't the one that went to. I didn't go to everything because I was working a lot. So
Mhm.
I'm going to give that role to her, or not give it. I'm going to assign that role to her because she probably played that role. But I do want to spend time talking about, of course, the company of dads, and I want to spend it talking about the lead role
Yeah.
here. How do you, how can I disqualify myself, or can you disqualify yourself as a lead parent?
The one thing I'll tell you, Doug, is anybody like you who is wrestling with whether or not he was a
Okay.
lead dad,
Right.
chances are he was
Yeah.
a lead dad. Like my
Okay.
my
Right.
dad, my dad is an amazing grandfather. I mean, he's a lead granddad, but our three daughters love him. He's the go-to grandparent of all four grandparents. But as a dad in the 1980s,
Hmm.
he was not a lead dad, and nor would he ever say that he was a salesman. He went out after he drank at the bar. My mom would call. They got divorced when I was 10. My mom would call and like, is he there? Like, oh, no, he left. He
He's
left.
still sitting there at the bar with
He
his
just
third
got a new
double.
another doors. So
Right.
like at no point does he say, yeah, I wonder if I was a lead dad. So you're wrestling with it. Chance that those key questions of like all these years later. I mean, you kids, you said 28 and 31, you still remember the pediatrician and the dentist name. You were deeply involved. And that's really what it means. It means taking that active role. But look, we know that from our research, only a third of dads in the United States are lead dads. It's a big number,
Right.
25 million dads, but it's being driven by guys in their 30s who want to, work and live in a different way, who want to who saw how their dads worked, and they're trying to figure out a way to be, more involved as parents, perhaps more, supportive as spouses, perhaps, like me, I'll tell you my story when you ask, or when AI tells you to ask. But to me, it was something that, I never set out to be a lead dad. It just was something that happened because of circumstances.
Yeah, I totally get that. And very similar to you, my parents were divorced. I was two, not 10. So you had at least a few more years of your dad in the house, or maybe representing some level of fatherhood or fathership to you. I had the worst example. I mean, my dad was a great guy, great business guy, and a great guy, and people loved him. And I'm like, oh, who's this guy that you keep talking about? Because I don't know that as my father. But I didn't have the best role model as an active or a lead parent other than my mom. And even when my mom remarried, my mom still kept the role of the lead parent. That other person who was my stepdad for 42 of my years, of 60 years of my life, my stepfather still didn't play an active role as a parent. So I chose, or I think my mom self-selected herself as the lead parent. Not notwithstanding any of that stuff. How is it that someone would act, or what qualities are there of someone that is a lead dad, let's say?
I mean, good sense of humor, not taking themselves too seriously. Empathy helps. Being a calendar wizard is key. But for most part, it's pick your analogy. Are you a team player? Are you a member of the band? It's somebody who looks more holistically and says, okay, what needs to get done here.
Hmm.
And we have a lot of lead dads in our community who have big time jobs. I'm telling you, guys who work at Cisco, guys who are entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
guys at Google. These are big time jobs, but they're the lead parent often because their spouse does something like is a child psychiatrist, is an elementary school teacher, is, a nurse or a doctor with a fixed schedule. So oftentimes it's that man who has the ability to move their schedule around a little bit more, owns a bit
Hmm.
more of their time, so they can block it out and say, okay, I'm going to do this. Or, I'm thinking of this guy whose wife is a child psychiatrist. You can't cancel those appointments. If your child gets sick and another child needs
Right.
you, it's really hard to say, hey, I know you're having a crisis right now. Could you come back in 3 weeks when I have an opening again? And so he's able to kind of step in and do that role, even though he is a much higher earner than she is. He takes on
Right.
that role to help to think of the family unit as a team or a band.
I think about the lead dad does not get the role because of the absence of another parent, like the mom. It's more of a you take that role, right? I mean, you take it. You take that responsibility as the father of a family that you have to want to play an active role. You can't fake your way through this, correct?
Yeah, and that's why we intentionally use the phrase, both the lead dad phrase, but also the first line is the go-to parent. We never say that he is the primary parent, because if you have a primary parent, by definition, you have to have a secondary parent. And so there's certain things that lead dad is going to do really well. He's going to own more of his time. He's going to be the one who can be a little bit more organized, who can go to those, appointments when they come up. But like in my case, I'm just as surprised on Christmas morning when my kids open their presents as they are, because my wife loves that. And that's something that she takes as her responsibility and she owns it. So that's a great way to think about it. When you are the lead anything, lead dad, lead mom, lead parent, you're owning those tasks. Nobody is telling you what to do. Nobody is telling you you need to go and, get a dentist appointment for your kids. You know that it's time and you do it. Just as I'm not telling my wife, hey, did you remember to get those Christmas presents this year?
Right,
You
right,
know, it's the
right.
birthday for the daughter and coming. She knows and she owns those tasks. And so that's really leads for a lot more harmony in the relationship, because you're not, one person isn't keeping that mental load all the time. Like, okay, did he take out the trash? Did he do this? Did he good? You just know you own a certain number of tasks in the house. You do it. And the other things, of course, you talk through and you come up with a solution together.
There's got to be some level or a degree of empathy, compassion, kindness, willingness to do something outside of your comfort zone when you're a lead parent or a lead dad. And it doesn't typically fit the mold of a C-suite, executive, as a guy that writes for the New York Times, as someone that is ambitious and has the entrepreneurial dream, as the wind in their sails. How did you find this to be something that you gravitated towards? I'm just curious
That's
how
such
you
a
became that.
great point. I'll answer your question. I won't dodge it, but I'm going to throw something out there. I talked to today the CEO of the 12th or 13th largest asset management company in the country. Gigantic job. The CEO is a woman. Her husband is a lead dad. So this is not like, just as hard charging men have gotten to the top as CEOs. They've had, if they have children, they've had a spouse to be there to do a lot of these stuff. It's the script is flipping slowly, where women are in these huge roles. They also need to have a lead dad to take care of all this stuff. How did I come about doing it? We sort of, when my parents got divorced at age 10, I say that they were really bad at being married, like incredibly bad, and they
Understood.
should have gotten divorced. Turns out, though, Doug, they were even worse at being divorced. I'm like, God damn, how do you guys? You're really bad at being married. Now you're even worse at being divorced. And I had two goals in life, which was to never live in my hometown again as long as
Yeah,
I
man, I hear you.
get out of there. And the second was to write for the New York Times. And the first one was easy. I went to this place called college, and I never, ever, ever went back.
Amen.
And the New York Times took, 10, 15 years. And I got there. And I tell this, like, I got married in 2007. I became a business columnist in the New York Times 2008. First daughter in 2009. Holy cow. 2010, my first book comes out, and Sally Field Moment. People actually liked it. A lot of them bought it. They hired me to do keynote talks. This was amazing. Second child was born in 2012. Cannot believe how good my life has turned out. Not just my career, but my life. And in 2013, my wife said, I want to start my own asset management firm. And I said, you have to do this. Like, literally, this is,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Do it. Like my life is amazing. She said, just one thing. I said, what? I'm going to be really busy and what are we going to do with the kids? And I said, I'll become the lead dad. And she said,
So
what? I
you immediately like I would have probably would have said shit. I don't know.
don't know. I'm going out though. So
This is
let me
gonna
think about this.
this
I'm
is
going to
gonna
go for
be
a
a
walk.
this is gonna be a problem now. The first thing that went through my mind is I mean, all joking aside, I mean, yeah, I probably would have wanted her to follow. You know, a happy couple is one that both are doing what they want to do with life. So we probably would have figured it out. My response probably would have been, "We're going to figure this out. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like, but we're going to figure it out." Instead, you said it sounds like you need to do that, and I will take care of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. But I
Well,
knew I could do it because I probably at that point owned 80% of my time. Like
right,
a
right,
column is due the same day every week. Other stuff I'd write for the Times takes weeks, if not months, to
right,
put
right.
together. Books take 2 years to write. Nobody ever calls you up and says, "Hey, can you fly down to Orlando tomorrow and give a keynote talk?" Those things are also planned 3, 4, 5 months in
Right,
advance. So
right.
everything could be planned. And then what I did that was kind of novel at the time. This is 2013. Is I just started working more from home, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say like, "Hey, I'm going," and I
Hmm.
started working more from home. And so I'd be in the city a couple days a week. My dad would come down and need help. I'd when I was in, and I'd work from home the rest of the time. And we made it work, which is not to say it always works seamlessly. I mean, there were ridiculous
Oh
stories,
no. I mean,
but
what in life doesn't have bumps and hurdles along the way, even if you have the ideal schedule, unless you're independently wealthy and don't need the money, you always have to go somewhere to do something to make to grease the economic wheels of running a household and managing a
right,
household.
yeah, yeah. But it was really taking that team approach, and it worked. But if I'm always honest about this, those first 7 years, I was an undercover lead dad. I was like deep, deep undercover. And I looked around my town. It's a small suburban town, Southern Connecticut. And most of the caregiving was done by moms or paid caregivers. I didn't
Hmm.
see anybody who looked like me. And same thing at work. I didn't want to put my hand up at work and say, "Hey, oh yeah, yeah, by the way, I've got this amazing job, dream job. I'm also the lead dad." Now, did the New York Times ever tell me, "No, you can't be a lead dad"? Absolutely not. Did any of my editors, most of whom were working moms, did they ever say, "Hey, no, you can't do this"? Is my own insecurity. This is, pre-COVID, how we're
Totally.
working. Like,
Right, right.
I'm just going to keep this on the down low. But it led to completely absurd, outcomes. And I'll just tell you one.
Somebody just stole your dog, just so you know. That's what
I
I
wasn't
saw the door,
acknowledging that
saw the
the
door open
dog.
for all of our community members that are listening to this on audio, which is fucking everybody because we don't play this on video. The door just got opened behind Paul, and secretly, clandestinely, the dog walked out of the room. There was no hand gesture. There was no anything. It was just a door opening. I saw a dog leave.
Doug, like AI didn't tell you that was going to happen. AI told you that at this part in the podcast
That
that
was
was.
the best. Who was that, by the way? Who was that? Your wife that lets? I couldn't see the hand. I only
I
saw a
stayed
hand.
looking at you, Doug. I've got laser like focus. I didn't even know the dog was gone.
Oh gosh, well, I couldn't
Uh,
avoid it. The dog walked over your shoulder to get out the door. By the way,
I'm glad nobody's. Don't fat shame my dog. My dog is big boned. Okay, that's why you could see
it
her.
was
She's
fluff. It was all
very,
fluff. There
she's
was
a
no.
very fluffy She's a Bernedoodle for those listening. A Bernedoodle.
Anyway, sorry, I'm not editing any of that out. It was too good for me, so it's gonna keep that right in there. Anyway, where were we? I
I
completely
was saying,
forget.
like, this led to sort of absurd moments, and probably one of the most absurd moments is, uh, I'm set. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks to talk to the former head of the Council of Economic Advisors, White House Council of Economic Advisors,
Yep.
cabinet level position. You don't just text this person. I guess you do in this day and age. We're talking the day after the whole Signal leak, where it turns out high-ranking government officials text journalists top secret plans.
I got
That
it.
wasn't how it was back then.
Okay.
I have this set up, and then one of my daughters gets sick, and so she's got to go to the pediatrician. So I'm like, well, I can't cancel. So what am I gonna do? So my dad, otherwise known as Grampy is down. I said, Grampy, drive her to the pediatrician, but whatever you do, don't talk to the doctor. Don't ask any questions.
Don't make
Then
any
whatever.
decisions.
Don't tell any stories about your day's sailing. Don't any. Just call me. Call me when you're there. And so I dropped the other daughter off at ballet. Unfortunately, this is the pre-Zoom time, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat of my car outside of ballet on my phone, and the call comes in from former cabinet official. Call comes in, and I'm talking away, and having a great conversation. She had no idea where I
Right.
am. Just
Right.
I'm in my office at the New York Times, and all of a sudden I see on my cell phone the number for the pediatrician. And as any parent knows, there's only one thing you can do. You have to answer
Of
the
course.
pediatrician, because if you don't, these people, they evaporate, they disappear.
Right.
You
You
won't talk
can't
to the
reach them
pediatrician
back
for days.
again. It goes right to
They're just
service.
gone. You call them.
Yep.
But it's like pediatrician, high ranking government official, former cabinet level. But what do I do here? What do I do? And I say, and this woman has two kids. Middle of the conversation, I say, you know what? It's a really amazing point, and it reminds me of my next question. And I hang up on her, and I hang up right there, mid question. Take the call for the period. Now she's calling me back because
Right. Right.
who hangs up on
Right.
can't
Right.
remember nobody hangs up on somebody
And
like
you
this
can't
ever.
get back to her harder than the pediatrician because it's a top secret line.
Right. Yeah, but she's calling me back. I was like, oh, yeah. Talk to the pediatrician. Now I get back. Now I have to answer her call, but I can't lie because I'm a New York Times columnist. I have to tell the truth. So I said, what do I say? What do I say? I said, okay. Because I was like, I'm really sorry. The call dropped. Cell phone service in my town is awful.
There you go.
Where are we? Now, that's all true. I was sorry that I had to, drop
Uh-huh.
it. If I had been moving, my town has notoriously bad cell phone service. I was sitting still. She didn't know that. And then we picked up on it. And I think about that, like, if that were to happen today, like just in our podcast now, my dog disappeared from the back of our room. And
Right.
it just happens. It happens in the world we live in now. Back then, I never could have admitted that. Today, if I was talking to her and I was talking to her on Zoom and my dog disappeared, she wouldn't even bat an eyelash. And if we remember, like just about a year before COVID happened, there was the BBC dad. I don't know if you remember
I
this. Yeah.
remember that.
The
The,
BBC,
the
this guy,
kid comes into the room and the nanny
two
comes
kids
in.
come in. No, this is why wife comes in. But she goes in after they says, this is a guy, for people that remember, he's an economist. He's in South Korea. He's
Right,
talking about
right,
something
right.
about the Korean Peninsula. Nobody remembers what the hell he's talking about, but
No.
he's on the BBC, and all of a sudden, he's back then, to get that type of satellite link up, that's a lot of work. All
Right.
this, and the kids come in because hey, Dad's on TV. This is
Right.
great. Little kids.
Right.
And then, and they're crawling. One of them's in a little bouncy thing, and his wife comes in and pulls the kids out as if they're like a pair of pythons, and they're about to eat him. And he keeps talking. He doesn't flinch, and they pull him out now, and he goes viral. He's famous. He's BBC dad. If that happened today, nobody would care. And
No.
that's really the sort of tipping point for the company of dads. It came out of COVID. Like a lot of things that we're dealing with now, that we talk about, that we work with companies on, are all things that needed to be addressed pre-COVID. But there's no way I would have left my job at the New York Times to do it. It was what happened when we worked from home for a couple of years. What happened when companies changed their policies? That's where we sort of come in and say, okay, let's get in front of this. Let's acknowledge that your workers are also parents. They're also caregivers. They're also humans. And when you lean into that, you're going to get greater productivity out of them, and you're going to get them to be more loyal and stay longer.
I think about that answer, and thank you for sharing that story, because it was a great example of pre versus post COVID and the creation of the company of dads, your organization. But I think about it, and I'm like, I really like baking. I don't mind baking. I like it. My girlfriend, her birthday was recently, and I made a cake, one of her favorite cakes. I followed a recipe, but in no way, shape, or form do I want to open up a bakery. It's just not on my agenda. Do I mind doing it every once in a while? No, not at all. I think it's kind of fun. You get to follow a recipe. You get to see the product of your labor. At some point, you had to say, all of these changes and shifts are going on around us. I am going to organize this organization called the Company of Dads. I'm not only going to do that, but I'm going to create a LinkedIn page, an Instagram following, a Facebook page. I'm going to have a podcast. I'm going to sell merch. I'm going to make T-shirts and hoodies and all that. When did you say, this is something that I see growing legs? And not only that, but I'm interested in leading this organization, like, that.
Like being the lead dad in America.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How is it being the lead dad? Look, it's good to be a great father, but it's another thing to want to start an organization of great fathers.
It's a great question. And it started with me trying not to do this, to try to find every reason not to do it.
But nobody had, so you had to do it, right?
Well, no, because honestly, like, after I got that data point, the 25 million, fathers who are lead dads in the United States, and that's real data. That's U.S. Census, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Pew.
Right.
I said, boy, that's a big number. Let me see if there's any story there. And who do I talk to? I'm not going to talk to dads because dads would lie to me. They would
Right.
say, I'm not a
Right.
lead dad. I'm a
Right.
whatever I am.
Right.
And I talked to all these senior female executives, and that's really when I started thinking, there's a lot here. These women are telling me, what their husbands did, how they partnered. They told me about their struggles. And then it was a conversation that I had with the former CMO of GoDaddy, who left and went to work for the founder of GoDaddy, this guy Bob Parsons. And she said, this is summer 21. She said, this is a good idea, but I know what you're going to do. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? It's like AI before AI. She says, you New York Times guys always do the same thing. You write a book and then you go talk about it on like NPR. And I'm like, I've written 2 books and I've been on NPR a bunch. Like, what's wrong with that? That's kind of awesome. What am I missing
It's
here?
a natural progression.
Natural progression. Like, what are
Right.
you, what's she talking about here? She said, no. Your moment is now. Like, this is a media company, a community platform. And guess what? You know that companies are really going to struggle with this. We're seeing it everywhere. And that was, I give her a lot of credit. Her name's Leela Brennan. I give her a lot of credit for that light bulb moment. But I also, to be honest, I had a wife who was saying, you've got to take a risk. Like, I'm the most risk averse person ever. And she says, take a risk. You've got 3 daughters. You want to, bring about some change. And she says, what's the worst thing that happens? 3 years down the road, you go on a podcast and some guy created the whole thing using AI. Is that really the worst thing that happens? I'm like, what? How did she know that too? Everyone knows that.
Everybody knows that.
And that was it. And I went to the Matters at the Times. They were super supportive. And I left. I said, all right, I'm gonna, take a risk. But I knew, because I had 25 years in as a journalist, I knew that I had the writing part down. I had the communicating part down. And I'd done a lot of keynote talks. I knew that there was a market there. How was I going to develop it? And I'll be honest with you, first year, amazing. Second year, what kind of dumbass, leaves the New York Times to do something like that? Like really, really bad. And then in the start of the third year, we got our first big partnership, which was with Bright Horizons, the national chain of childcare centers. And that was huge.
Oh man,
That was like validation.
Talk about validation to the nth degree. It's like,
100%.
yes, we have all of these dads that are at home and they are the lead parent. Even I'm assuming you can still be a lead parent even with your kids in childcare, can't you?
Yes,
Of course you
Yes.
can. As long as you're the go-to. It sounds like the
You're
go-to
the
person.
go-to parent. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So what was the motivation? You left the New York Times. There had to be a business model that you were thinking of following. Again, your role, your goal, I'm assuming, unless I'm wrong and thinking you were leading with hoodies and coffee mugs, unless your lead business model was, I have an idea, let's start this organization so that I can sell hoodies and coffee mugs. What's the business model behind the company of dads?
I have to say it's not hoodies and coffee mugs.
Right. I had a feeling it
Do you
was
have any idea how many coffee mugs you'd have to sell?
just about as many as books that you have to sell on Amazon in order to become a millionaire. It's like a million.
That's right.
Right.
No, so the model was I'm a huge golfer. That's my when my parents got divorced, my grandfather, who works in the post office, stepped in and was really instrumental in my life. We played a lot of golf together, and I've always loved it. And there are scores of websites that allow you to nerd out on golf, like any hobby. You go deep into the nerd hole. And there was one in particular called the Random Golf Club that took a different approach. And I got to know the guy, Eric Anders Lang, who started it, based in Austin, Texas. He was so generous of his time. I flew down to Austin, and I said, I want to model this on what you're doing, with some variation. And he was amazing. He, said, okay. And we had met on a golf trip, and said, I'll open everything up for nothing. Like, he got nothing out of it, just being a good guy.
Right.
Yeah. Or a nice guy, to keep it.
It's okay.
A nice guy. But that was the early model. And what it's, become is, I looked at this, and again, like, I grew up lower middle class. And so I was very clear that, we make some money off the newsletter because we have a good subscription base, but I wanted to make sure there's plenty of stuff out there that people could access for free, because there weren't any resources. There's no, like, we have a Lead Dad library. What's a Lead Dad library? It's like every other resource library, except all of the other ones that exist in the entire universe are written by moms for moms. We just had it written by dads for dads. And I want, some of my best friends growing up in, rural Western Massachusetts, I wanted them, if they were lead dads, to be able to access this. How do we make money? that's the other part, that we make money doing corporate work. I'd always been a business journalist. I'd always given, paid keynote speeches, and I knew that companies needed help with solving what, return to office, return to work, post-COVID work was going to be like. And I also knew just from, 10 years of giving keynote talks that even the best companies were going to screw it up. And if they didn't screw it up, it was going to be dumb luck that they didn't screw it up. And so we do, with companies, we do, three things really. One is keynote talk that we'll give to sort of a parenting or a caregiver employee resource group, or oftentimes they'll have events where they want to bring all their vendors in and they want to sort of think, they know that this is happening and they want to acknowledge, that lead dads partnering with working moms is very powerful. That's one. Second is, workplace seminars. Workplace seminars is helping, people understand why when you're honest and open about this, that is a form of leadership and you're showing that caregiving is not gendered, and that's super valuable to companies because nobody's ever left a job for a 3% raise. You leave, if you leave a job and you get paid 3% more, you hate your manager and you hate where you're working.
Right.
And then the third thing we do is we do manager training, because so many big companies, they spend a gajillion dollars creating the world's best HR plan, creating the world's best parental leave policy, but they don't spend just a little bit of money to make sure those managers implement it correctly. And so what's an example of what we do with something like this? Company X has, 20 weeks leave for dads, 20 weeks leave for moms, very equitable. Mom has baby, goes off, takes her 20 weeks. There's a plan, send her off on leave, while she's on leave, onboard her when she returns. Dad says, I'm going to take my time off. Manager says, you kidding me, man? I know when I was in your position, I never took time off.
Right.
What are you gonna? Are you going like on vacation or something? Are you gonna go golf in Scotland?
Like,
no,
like parenting can be done by one.
no, man. It's the benefit. It's yours. I mean, I never would have taken it. I'm exaggerating, but it's those comments like that that sort of set the negative precedent as to like, okay, we don't really mean it. We're giving you this, but we really don't want you to take it. And so that's the negative. The positive is we really encourage managers, both men and women in senior level, to be more open and honest with their calendars. Don't just put say, children's doctor's appointment or, taking daughter for ice cream. We have all these examples of leaders who've done this, and it has this transformative effect because when other people can see your calendar, it's like, okay, I guess I really can do this. My manager's doing this. I guess I really can do this. And when we say companies like, we are saving you money. I could not charge you enough money. I could try, you wouldn't pay me, but I could not charge you enough money to not make this worth your while. Because if I save you from 3 or 4 key employees leaving your company, this is more than paid for itself.
What a great example. And thank you for sharing that. If someone in our community wanted to have a first touch point with the company of dads, what's the best way for them to first engage and then engage on a deeper level? Is it through your newsletter? Is it through your blog posts? What do you find is most typical when somebody's
the one-stop shop for people to get into this is subscribe to the newsletter. It's called The Dad. It's just thecompanyofdads.com/the dad. thecompanyofdads.com/the dad. And that is really, it's a great overview of probably 70% of what we do in a given week. And that is how people sort of get into it. Corporate speaking, it's obviously companyofdads.com/speaking. And then they can see all kinds of videos, all kinds of examples of what we've done on the corporate side as well.
And I see from your website also that I don't know if you organize this as a leadership team or if people take their own initiative, but you even have meetups. I was seeing that you have meetups all over the country. Is that right?
We do. Yeah. It's crucial because look, if you are a degenerate golfer like me, if you like tennis, if you like classic cars, whatever your hobby is, you can go and find an outlet for that. If you're a lead dad, you know that there have to be other lead dads around you, but you're not quite sure how to approach it. It's not like, hey, look at that 1967 Corvette. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, that's awesome. And you have it. And so it's become so instrumental in allowing these guys not just to be seen and heard, but to feel validated in what they're doing. And look, we're a for-profit business. I need to do the corporate talks to give you them, but there's nothing that makes me happier than the 2, 3, 4, 5 emails I get each and every week from people I don't know who say stuff like, man, I've been doing this. I love the term lead dad. I'm going to be called the lead dad, or I want to get involved, or I want, because then, you have a conversation just like anything else. You want to, whatever your hobby is, you get together, you kind of, yuck it up over your hobby. The same thing. Get together and talk about the good parts of being a lead dad and talk about the challenging parts of being a lead dad.
And if you're in our community and you are a little bit word adverse and you want to listen to Paul and other leaders, he also has a podcast called the Company of Dads Podcast. So, and you've been doing it for, looks like a few years. You have 160 some odd, or 100 and some odd episodes.
140 episodes. Yeah.
Crazy, man. You're beyond pod fade now. After 10 or 12, you're in it for a year. And then after the year, you're in it for good. So you're past your 1 year mark, right?
We did do one that failed. It was called, what was it called? It was the Global Dad, Council of Global Dads, and I had all these guys from around the world, and we did 4 of those because we realized that it was just monologues. So that I did have pod failure with that one, but
Well,
the Company of Dads was
look,
fun.
after 1,600 episodes, I've had a lot of failures of episodes also. But what I consider a failure is not necessarily what my audience. Sometimes my audience says that was a great episode. I'm like, I thought it sucked, but thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. So you've been doing it for a while, and tell me about the makeup of the guests that are on your show.
Oh, it's everyone, academics who have some real insight into how we're working differently to guys you'd want to hear their story and identify with. So, for example, we had Super Bowl champion, a guy named Najee Good on. He's a lead dad. He's got full custody of his 2 daughters. We had a guy, J.R. Havlin, who won 8 Emmy Awards writing for The Daily Show, as you might imagine. We had him, actually had him on twice because he's so damn funny. But we've shown guys in all kinds of roles because the podcast is important, but also this feature called the Lead Dad of the Week is important because it really exists to show that there is a lead dad that looks like you. Like whoever you are,
Totally.
there's a lead dad that looks like you. And that's because we know that once you can identify with somebody, you want to be part of that community. And if you knew me better, you would know that I know absolutely nothing about the NFL or about football in general. And when Najee and I were talking, we met up down in Florida. He introduced me to all of his NFL buddies. This guy played 10 years in the league, Super Bowl ring. And they all want to talk about this concept of being a lead dad because most of those guys, their careers end in their 30s and they love this role. And to sort of, I know we're kind of running up on time, but, you started the intro with, the whole idea of Michael Keaton as Mr. Mom.
Right.
As the
Right.
kind of, but I always tell people, like, what did Michael Keaton go on to do after Mr. Mom? He became Batman.
Yeah. Oh, Michael Keaton,
Batman.
the actor. I'm like, what did Mr.
Yeah.
Mom? And he ended up being just Mr. Mom.
No, no,
You're
no. After he became Batman, and Batman is such a badass character compared to the bumbling Mr. Mom, and that's really why we lean into that term, lead dad, because it's something you can get behind. It's something proactive. It's something powerful, and ultimately, it's something that's masculine in a very positive way.
Well, and I think today it is a lot more acceptable to be a lead dad than it was in the 80s or early. Certainly never in the 60s. You would have, I don't even know what that wouldn't have been. You couldn't because your wife wouldn't be able to get a job, or whatever. You couldn't have been the lead dad in the 60s. You could have been, but it wasn't as popular. Now I think it's a lot more acceptable and open. Unless again, I'm reading it wrong just from an outsider looking in.
I mean, look, the numbers don't lie. I mean, it's a big number of men who are lead dads, but we've done podcasts. We've had lead dads of the week with guys who are what I call the OG lead dads, guys who are doing it in the 1980s. And this one guy comes to mind. His wife had an amazing career, first at Bank Boston, then at CVS, rising up to be like the number 2 or 3 person at CVS. And he was an endocrinologist. So if you know anything about medicine, endocrinologist, it's about the most academic, specialty you could have. They sit around and debate how the endocrine system is going to work, which I don't even know if anybody knows how it works. But he said, okay, I can do that. I'll become the lead dad. And for a period of time, he became an emergency room doctor. Could not have been any further, across the spectrum of medical care. Endocrinologist, let's debate stuff. ER doctor, holy shit, what do we do now?
Right.
But he did that because he could still fulfill himself as a doctor and work
right.
3 days a week and support his wife. And so he was a great story of how he did it, in the 80s. And then it ended up changing his whole career. He ended up going into public medicine, public health after that. But, he found a way to make it work to have more ownership of his time, control of his time so his wife could thrive.
Advance the clock a year or more with the Company of Dads. What do you aspire to be as an organization at that point?
Well, aspire. I kind of know what is highly likely to happen. We've had we had a great end of the year, and the Wall Street Journal wrote a story about us and put it on their front page, and so that was big. ABC News came out and has done a big piece. It's going to run on Nightline, and that led to many offers to write a book. So I've just finished a book proposal. It'll be my third book, and so that will either come out Father's Day next year or Father's Day the year after. And with that, I hope it just ratchets up the talks. I mean, my ultimate goal is for the company of dads not to be associated with Paul Sullivan, and for the company of dads to become the one-stop shop for all fatherhood questions. Like, you're going to come here like, okay, I bet the company of dads will have an answer to what do I do when X happens.
There's going to be an AI version of the company of dads. You already know that right now. I think there probably already is, but you need to load in all of you probably have. You load in all your blog posts so that the company of dads answer. Is there an AI
No, I'm just thinking now, like, why did you even ask me that question? You could have just put it into AI, like, what will the company of dads be in a year? And it would have told both of us. Thanks a lot, Doug.
I just thought of that. I mean, there is if you have so many blog posts and so many podcast episodes that truly the answer to every question that you have gotten so far is in the content that you have created. Give me an answer an AI answer based upon the company of dad's content so far. I think it's part of your future.
I think it's there. I'll go to AI as soon as we get off this podcast.
Paul, I so appreciate you sharing, and your inspiration is amazing. And I'm hoping you motivated some in our audience to take action a closer step to you. So thanks for being on the show, and thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Doug, thanks for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Paul Sullivan. All of his information, including access to his blog and his newsletter and his of course his podcast and his coffee mugs and hoodies, right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
You've put enough in little Johnny's 529. Now it's time to really help out someone in need. The Nice Guys on Business need your support. Please go to patreon.com, and for as little as $2 a month, you can help these guys continue to ramble on and on and on, week after week after week. Thank you for your support. And boy, is it weak.